Hello, today, welcome to Global Nationalism. I'm a global nationalist. I support nationalism in my country, India, and in all countries around the globe. Today, I'm going to be talking about nationalism in a country outside South Asia. That country today is United States of America. For this video, I want to discuss President Donald Trump's attempts to negotiate a settlement between Ukraine and Russia during their war with each other, in which Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, as you all know. And this negotiations have been going on since President Trump entered office in this year, and which I think is a good thing compared to President Biden, who was not having open negotiations with Russia during this war, from at least from after the first June or July of 2022. There's been no official negotiations between the United States and Russia. And now, and this round of negotiations really began when President Trump invited President Putin to the United States in the state of Alaska, and later invited President Zelensky and some leaders of the European Union to America. I want to discuss what happened in both meetings and how the state of negotiations is as of today. And today is the 24th of August, which is Ukraine's Independence Day, and I want to wish them a happy Independence Day. Let's get started. Let's first talk about President Trump and Putin's meeting in Alaska, the summit meeting. This meeting between US and Russian Presidents Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin uh, and Trump welcomed Putin by waiting for Putin on a red carpet. Then Putin accepted a lift to the airbase in Trump's armored limousine instead of driving in his own Moscow plated presidential car, which seems like a nice gesture that President Trump offered and that Putin accepted. What was said when talks ended earlier than expected? There was a statement given by both leaders to the press, but it wasn't a press conference. No questions were asked. Putin was the first to speak. He said they had a constructive atmosphere of mutual respect of the neighborly talks. He spoke about the situation in Ukraine, and he said that although an unspecified agreement had been reached, the root causes of the conflict had to be eliminated before peace could be achieved. This term root causes is a reference to the reasons for why Russia invaded Ukraine, why Russia believes this conflict was caused. In their opinion, the root causes is Ukraine's attempt to join NATO and Ukraine's alleged oppression of Russian-speaking uh, provinces in the east of Ukraine, which Russia has said that those states will now be a part of Russia. This phrase set off alarm bells in Kiev and beyond because since the start of the war, it became a shorthand for a series of intractable and maximalist demands that Putin says stands in the way of a ceasefire. They include recognition of Russian sovereignty over the Ukrainian regions of Crimea, Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson, as well as Ukraine agreeing to demilitarization, neutrality, and no foreign military involvement in new elections. And in these, I agree with all of these conditions because, except for demilitarization, I think Ukraine should be allowed to have a military as their choice. And but Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporozhye, and Kherson are Russian-speaking states of Ukraine, and they were annexed by Russia after having a referendum there. And now I don't know how valid that referendum was, but it is true that a large portion of that the population of the states want to be a part of Russia and no longer part of Ukraine. So I don't have a negative view of them joining Russia, especially since Russia's conquered all of Luhansk, most of Donetsk, and half of Zaporozhye and Kherson. What was not said? When Trump's turn to speak, he did not mention Ukraine or the possibility of a ceasefire. The closest he came to referencing the conflict was saying that 5, 6, 7,000 people a week are killed, and noting that Putin too wanted to see an end to the bloodshed. President Trump said there were many, many points that we agreed on, and it was an extremely productive meeting. And to Moscow's relief, there was no mention of any severe consequences that Trump threatened would follow if a ceasefire wasn't reached. Then there was a meeting between President Trump and Zelensky in Washington. After the summit, Trump posted on Truth Social that he had called Putin to begin arranging talks between the Russian leader and Zelensky. Trump said that following such a bilateral, at a location to be determined, there would be a trilateral where the US president would join them. A Putin advisor said afterwards that Trump and Putin spoke for 40 minutes by phone on Monday. Europeans push back as Trump backs away from ceasefire. Trump seems to dismiss the need for any ceasefire before negotiations to end the war can take place. I agree that there doesn't have to be a ceasefire before negotiation between Ukraine and Russia take place. The negotiations can happen along with the fighting continuing, and that rather than a ceasefire, they should look for a complete end to the conflict, a peace deal. And Trump said that he doesn't know that it's necessary. The European leaders appeared to push back, with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz saying, I can't imagine that the next meeting will take place without a ceasefire. And when asked to speak, Zelensky did not reiterate his previous calls for a ceasefire to be put in place. So I think he has accepted that a ceasefire probably won't happen before the negotiations begin. Trump told Zelensky the US would help guarantee Ukraine's security in any deal to end the war. The US president did not offer boots on the ground, but when asked by reporters whether US security guarantees for Ukraine would include any American military in the country, Trump did not rule it out. This seems confusing to me. I don't know how you can have American military in the country of Ukraine without boots on the ground. Perhaps he means that American military will only be an advisory role and there will be no actual active soldiers fighting. He said Europe was the first line of defense, but that America will be involved. Then later this week, Trump spoke about what was happening with the negotiations, and Russia's foreign minister Sergei Lavrov gave an interview to the American media channel called NBC News. He said President Putin said clearly that he is ready to meet President Zelensky, provided this meeting is really going to have an agenda, presidential agenda. And this shows that a meeting between the two leaders might happen, but only if Putin feels as Zelensky has a agenda with him and isn't just having a meeting for the sake of one. He wants a meeting where the war can come to an end, which is good for me to hear, and I think that's necessary. A simple meeting for symbolic reasons isn't going to help. It has to have some agenda that Zelensky can provide. In an appearance Sunday on Meet the Press, Secretary of State, America's Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that if tomorrow the war continues, life in America will not be fundamentally altered. That is true, and I think should be something that President Trump reminds himself of during this conflict, that the American people do not have a vital stake in this conflict, and that America has been pushing this issue of Ukraine joining NATO for a long time, which led to Russia invading Ukraine, and that it was never necessary for America to get involved in their dispute. And if he cannot negotiate a deal between both countries, I think it would be best for him to stop selling any weapons to Ukraine and to get out of the conflict entirely. Though I doubt that will happen because I don't think the deep state and neocons and neoliberals in America's Congress will allow him to do so. Closing remarks. So far, I think the meetings have gone well, and I'm happy with how Trump is uh, negotiating things. And I think he's trying to uh, find some deal that will obviously allow Ukraine to be, allow Russia to wi- keep most of the territory it's won, most of the goals it wanted, the diplomatic goals, and that basically the deal will recognize Russia's victory, which it has won, and but I think he also wants to give Ukraine some assurance that America will protect it if Russia attacks in the future. And my worry is that that second point is going to be very difficult for Russia to accept because their whole issue for this war was that they did not want Ukraine to be part of an American alliance, NATO in particular, or in this anything like NATO. I think Zelensky has accepted President Trump's demand that uh, he would not allow Ukraine to join NATO, but Zelensky still seems to want some security guarantees from the United States, which, in my opinion, is unnecessary and will just uh, risk angering Russia. But actually, it's still necessary. I'm not saying it's not unnecessary, but it will risk angering Russia and provoking further conflict in the future. But I can sympathize with them on why they would want it. I think that it would be better for Ukraine to just accept neutrality, which is what Russia wants. And for the US, its national interests are to get out of this conflict as quick as possible. Even if the conflict doesn't resolve, even if President Trump cannot bring a peace deal, he should still leave it and allow Ukraine and Russia to fight amongst each other. And he can restart relations with Russia, open trade, remove sanctions, and have full diplomatic relations with them. That will really help America because of Russia's vast market, its resources, and trading with Russia can help the American economy and vice versa. So, yeah, in summary, I'm happy with how negotiations are going, and but I'm a little doubtful if a deal can be made. And I think that this war will be ultimately settled on the battlefield with one side defeating the other. So, without further ado, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you for watching. Please share your thoughts in the comment section. If you want to see other videos about nationalism in countries outside South Asia, click here. If you want to see my previous video, click here. If you want to see the sources I use for this video, click the link in the description below. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.